Good evening. There have been 14 naval accidents in the last 2 years alone. The latest one yesterday off the coast of Visakhapatnam. What exactly is wrong with our fleet? Welcome to the news tonight. I'm Zaka Jacob. Up first, as always, the headlines. One sailor dies as a Navy torpedo recovery vessel sinks off the coast of Vizag. There's a massive search that's on for the 4 missing personnel. 23 have been saved so far. Manohar Parrikar will resign as Chief Minister tomorrow. Contenders jostle to be his successor in Goa. Prime Minister Narendra Modi is on a 2-day visit to Varanasi. His first since becoming Prime Minister. He adopts the Jaipur village. And President Obama's secret letter to Ayatollah Ali Khamenei triggers a storm in the United States. The Republicans call the move outrageous. Now, our top story tonight. An extensive search operation has been launched to locate the 4 missing sailors after a Navy torpedo vessel sank off the coast of Visakhapatnam. A crack in the hull of this 30-year-old ship is believed to be the reason behind this disaster. It's already killed 1 person. And what's worrying, like I said at the top of the show, this is the 14th such mishap in the last 2 years. And it raises questions over the aging fleet of the Indian Navy. Nearly 24 hours after a torpedo recovery vessel sank off Visakhapatnam, a massive search operation is on to find 4 missing people in this tragedy. 1 sailor was killed while 23 others were rescued last night after flooding occurred in one of the compartments. That is believed to be the reason why this 31-year-old vessel sank.
Reason for the ship going down is flooding in the engine room compartment and the aft steering position due to ingress of water, which probably has been caused because of the failure of the seals from where the shafts protrude out of the ship.
This is the 14th incident of an Indian Navy vessel involved in a tragedy in the last 2 years. Since August of 2013, there have been 11 accidents involving Indian naval ships in which 22 deaths have been reported. In February and March this year, there were 2 incidents with INS Sindhuratna and INS Kolkata, killing 2 sailors and an officer.
The worn out parts, the old parts which have not been replaced, that could be the reason. Reason is because we don't make it, so we have to buy it. And when you're buying, things may not be available.
The Navy has experienced a spate of accidents at a time when it's trying to modernize and expand its reach. With incidents happening quite frequently now, questions are being raised over the aging fleet of the Indian Navy. Bureau Report, Rajya TV. So it's 14 incidents, 26 people dead. There could be 4 more if these 4 missing sailors can't be found. What exactly is wrong? Dr. P.K. Ghosh is a senior fellow with the Observer Research Foundation. He's now joining us live on the news tonight. This was a 31-year-old vessel. Are these accidents now pushing the Indian Navy and the defense establishment to a point where we have to take a serious, hard look at the age of our fleet?
Absolutely. I think there is a big requirement for introspection because the number of accidents have been growing steadily over the last few years. Of course, I must also mention in the same breath that the media has also been playing up a certain amount of accidents which are in the due course of operations. For example, I think one of the ships had a problem, it went aground, and then there was a problem in the sonar hull. So those were also played up by the media.
Well, but now, people have died, Doctor. I mean, to be fair, their families owe that explanation.
Yes, I don't disagree with that. It is a very sad thing that we had a loss of lives in Sindhuratna, we have a loss of life in this, and in all probability, the 3 or 4 people who are missing are also dead.
Yes.
Now, there is absolutely no doubt that we need to introspect. There are many reasons why I would say that these sort of occurrences are happening a lot more frequently. One is, of course, has been stressed a lot. It is the age of the ships. Most of the ships that we are now having, or which are facing these problems, are old, beyond the 20, 25-year age of a ship. The normal tendency is to give them refits, to extend the lifetimes. Now, beyond a certain point, it really can't be done, but we are doing it. The resources are less. The other thing is, of course, partly the mindsets. That also needs to be changed. And I think that's a very important aspect which needs to be looked into. Of course, apart from the training patterns, etc., the number of ships are less.
Well, what about procurement of new equipment? I mean, we don't develop much of this indigenously, so we're dependent on foreign procurement. And that, in the last few years, has virtually hit a roadblock. And one of the concerns from the political establishment is because of the nature of these defense deals, because of the vast amounts of money involved, they're almost inevitably prone to corruption. So therefore, the way the political establishment looks at it is because it's prone to corruption, let's stay away from it. And therefore, we'd rather not procure than get stuck or get mired in a big corruption deal. Is that the wrong way to be looking at it?
Absolutely. In fact, you've probably hit the problem right on the head itself. And, the tendency is to avoid procurement. And it's a very sorry thing because there are charges of corruption. So it's better to push the file under the carpet and keep it pending for that time because let's not have it during my tenure. So that seems to be the normal sort of attitude. And that is why most of our projects, in fact, are lagging behind. You take the submarines. What's happening to the Scorpions? They were delayed. It is just now that we have gone in for the Make in India P75I India, which is the advanced submarines. We hardly have submarines, only 13 we have got. So in every stage, we are having these problems of procurement. There is a wide gap between what is required and what is coming out. And on top of these are the other problems which are associated, which I told you.
All right, we'll have to leave it at that. Hopefully, these voices will be heard in the corridors of power and hopefully amends will be made. If for nothing else, at least the families of those sailors we've lost in these last 2 years deserve that much. Thanks for joining us. Dr. P.K. Ghosh, Senior Fellow from the Observer Research Foundation, joining us on the news tonight. All right, Goa Chief Minister Manohar Parrikar, and he will have a thing or two to say about these repeated accidents involving Indian naval fleets. He has now agreed to step down on Saturday as Chief Minister of Goa. That's going to pave the way for his possible induction in the central cabinet, and the speculation is he's most likely going to get the defence portfolio. The Modi government is likely to induct 10 new faces. This is going to be the first reshuffle since taking charge. Meanwhile, back in Goa, Mr. Parrikar's exit has already triggered a race to try and find his successor.
There is no official word out yet, but the stage is set for the first reshuffle of the Modi cabinet since May. According to government sources, the reshuffle will take place at the Rashtrapati Bhavan on Sunday at 1 p.m. Manohar Parrikar, the man touted as the next defence minister, will be stepping down as Goa Chief Minister on Saturday. The Legislative Party has begun discussing possible names as Parrikar's successor. Health Minister Lakshmikant Parsekar, Speaker Rajendra Arlekar and Deputy Chief Minister Francis D'Souza are considered to be the front-runners.
Tomorrow Parliamentary Board meets in the morning. After that I resign. After that a legislature party meets. There will be observer from Delhi, BJP's Parliamentary Board. And when they come, in their presence, legislature team meets and decides a new leader.
Shiv Sena sources claim that despite strained ties in Maharashtra, BJP has offered 2 cabinet posts to the party. In all, around 10 new faces are expected to be inducted in the cabinet.
मेरे लिए एक बहुत आनंद का क्षण है. वो बातें भी अगर उन्होंने मेरी यहाँ के तारीफ करना मेरे लिए बहुत बड़ा पुरस्कार है. उससे शायद मैं इससे जुड़ना नहीं चाहूँगा, लेकिन हो सकता है कि चयन हो भी जाए.
वी एक्सपेक्ट कि इस बार हिमाचल प्रदेश को अवश्य ही रिप्रेजेंटेशन माननीय मोदी जी की सरकार में मिलेगा. मोदी जी ठीक समझेंगे और मुझ पर ये जिम्मेवारी दी जाएगी तो डेफिनेटली उस जिम्मेवारी को निभाने के लिए हम पूरा प्रयास भी करेंगे.
Currently, with a strength of 45 members, the Modi cabinet has at least 6 ministers handling more than one portfolio. Arun Jaitley, Ravi Shankar Prasad, Nitin Gadkari, Venkaiah Naidu, Piyush Goyal and Prakash Javadekar are holding some of the key portfolios. These portfolios are now expected to be headed by the new inductees. With Bureau Inputs, Vishal Dahiya, Rajya Sabha TV.
Meanwhile, Prime Minister Narendra Modi had a lot of on offer in fact, in his first trip to Varanasi since winning in the Lok Sabha elections back in May. Promising better facilities and funds, he urged the textile industry, and that of course is a fulcrum of Banaras. He's urging them to use e-commerce to try and tap the global markets. He also announced funds to revive defunct cooperative banks in his Lok Sabha constituency.
It was his first visit to Varanasi after winning the Lok Sabha elections in May, and Prime Minister Narendra Modi had his hands full with plans to revive the textile industry there. Pitching for modernization, he asked the weavers to utilize the growing e-commerce market to reach out to global consumers.
ई-कॉमर्स के द्वारा ये जो विरासत है, इस विरासत का हम एक स्ट्रेटेजिकली यूज करें, हम ग्लोबल मार्केट को छूने का प्रयास करें और ग्लोबल रिक्वायरमेंट के अनुसार हम अपने आप को मॉडिफाई करें। मुझे विश्वास है कि हम इस पूरे उद्योग को और तेज गति से आगे बढ़ा सकते हैं।
Most of the Varanasi's 40,000 weavers are Muslim engaged in the traditional craft, now floundering for generations. In his election campaign, Modi had promised modern technology, branding, designing and marketing to improve conditions. PM had a business plan for the weavers who make the famous Banarsi sari.
भारत की 125 करोड़ जनसंख्या है। आने वाले कुछ वर्षों में कम से कम 20 करोड़ से ज्यादा बेटियों की शादी होगी। मतलब 20 करोड़ साड़ी का मार्केट है। अब बनारस वाले सोचे, कभी सोचा है कि इतना बड़ा मार्केट?
He also announced funds of over 2,000 crore rupees to revive 16 cooperative banks. Taking a dig at the ruling Samajwadi Party, PM said party should rise above petty politics for the sake of development.
बैंकें तब बच पाएगी और सामान्य मानवी का भला तब होगा जब वहां पर राजनीति को थोड़ा बाहर रखा जाए, एक बार बैंक को जिंदा करके सामान्य मानवी का भला करने की दिशा में काम हो।
Modi chose Jaipur as the village that he will focus on under the MP's model village scheme. Urging villagers to end dependence on government, Modi called for business skills and hard work by villagers to shape their own destiny. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Meanwhile, the Election Commission pulled up the Home Ministry today for announcing compensation to the 1984 Sikh riot victims. It questioned why the centre made this announcement despite the model code of conduct being in place for the bypolls here in Delhi. Though those bypolls now stand cancelled because the assembly has been dissolved and fresh elections have been called for, the Commission warned the Home Ministry against any recurrence of such an incident. The Commission had sought an explanation from the centre after it announced 5 lakh rupees as compensation to the families of riot victims. But the Home Ministry's reply failed to convince the Election Commission. The poll panel's reaction has been welcomed by opposition parties.
मुझे लगता है उन्होंने बहुत गंदी राजनीति की। एक तरह से पूरे सिख समुदाय के साथ 1984 के जो विक्टिम्स थे उनका एक तरह से मजाक उड़ाया कि पहले अनाउंस कर दिया 5 लाख रुपए फिर वापस ले लिया उसको, तो ठीक नहीं है। उनके एक तरह से जले पे नमक छिड़कने वाली बात है।
भारतीय जनता पार्टी की सरकार दिल्ली सहित अन्य राज्यों के चुनाव को प्रभावित करने के लिए सत्ता का दुरुपयोग कर रही है, जिसमें 5 लाख रुपए मुआवजा घोषणा की खबर को प्रसारित करवाया गया।
Now, this is one of those stories that happens only in India. The Civil Aviation Ministry has ordered 2 separate inquiries after a passenger flight hit a buffalo on the runway in Surat last night. Now, the collision caused heavy damage to the Boeing 737. However, all 170 passengers on board were unharmed. Civil Aviation Minister Ashok Gajapati Raju held a 2-hour meeting this morning. The DGCA and the Airports Authority of India will hold 2 separate investigations into this incident. Sources say he ordered that fencing at all airports should now be replaced by concrete walls. Experts have blamed the airport, which is in charge of maintenance of the runway.
This is not a fault of the airline. It's the fault of the airport, Surat Airport. Who controls Surat Airport? Airport Authority of India. Who controls Airport Authority of India? The Ministry of Civil Aviation of the Government of India. And Surat is in Gujarat. And Gujarati is the Prime Minister of India.
All right, some fair points there. All the other stories that have made the headlines across the country in Nationwide. The army on Friday said it's taking full responsibility for the murder of 2 teenagers in Budgam. It also announced 10 lakh rupees as compensation for the family members of each of the deceased and also 5 lakh rupees each for 2 injured youths. Back on the 4th of November, the army shot dead 2 young men in Chatargam area when they refused to stop at a checkpoint. Senior Congress leader P.L. Punia filed his nomination papers for the Rajya Sabha in the presence of senior party leaders and legislators in Lucknow. Mr. Punia will need a minimum of 37 votes in the 403-member UP Assembly. The biennial election is for 10 members of the Rajya Sabha whose term expires on the 25th of this month. On Tobacco Prevention Day today, the Bihar government banned the use of tobacco products in all public places. Chief Minister Jitan Ram Manchhi also hiked the rates of zarda, pan masala, as well as other tobacco products. Gold and silver prices have slumped to multi-year lows. They're trading at 25,800 for 10 grams, that's for gold, and 34,900 per kilogram for silver. Experts say weak cues from global markets as well as a strengthening dollar have accounted for a huge fall in demand for the precious metals. They've also said that in the absence of buyers, gold could see a further slide in the coming few days. All right, time for a break here on the news tonight. When we come back, who killed Osama bin Laden? It's been 3.5 years since the world's most wanted man was killed in Abbottabad, but the controversy continues. The news tonight is back right after this. Welcome back to News Tonight. Indo-Israel relations reached a new level with both sides pledging to deepen cooperation in fighting terrorism while at the same time collaborating on cybersecurity. Home Minister Rajnath Singh met with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Their talks covered a range of areas, including defense and agriculture. The hour-long meeting was described as extremely cordial and fruitful. The Home Minister, in fact, told the news agency PTI that the signing of agreements in Homeland Security marked a new phase of cooperation. Both Singh and Netanyahu have agreed that the free trade agreement between the two sides should be signed soon. President Pranab Mukherjee reached Bhutan today for a 2-day visit. Before leaving Delhi, he said that India will continue to assist Bhutan in its economic development. President Mukherjee is scheduled to hold talks with King Jigme Singye Wangchuk as well as Prime Minister Shering Tobgay. Agreements in the education sector are likely to be signed during this visit. India has offered all resources possible to Bhutan to boost bilateral ties.
The meetings will provide an opportunity to discuss all issues of mutual interest and ways of further strengthening our close bilateral relations. These inter alia include our development assistance, hydropower, border security and education.
Equally, one of the most important agreements which is expected to come out of this visit is on Bhutan participating in the effort to rejuvenate Nalanda University. The President has visited to Nalanda University and has been personally overseeing the progress in the rebuilding of this university.
It's been more than 3.5 years since the world's most dreaded man was killed. But who takes credit for killing Osama bin Laden? That's a game which is still going on. Members of the US Navy SEALs commando team which killed Osama are now making conflicting claims. The Washington Post published a story Thursday quoting Rob O'Neill, he's a former SEAL, who claims that he was the one who fired the fatal shot which hit bin Laden in the forehead. O'Neill, who travels across the US now giving motivational speeches, he was countered by other members of the team. Reuters spoke to one member of the team who said that the fatal shot was fired by one of 2 other men who entered Osama's room before Mr. O'Neill did. The Post said that O'Neill acknowledged shots were fired at bin Laden by at least 2 other SEALs. One of them is Matt Bissonnette, a former SEAL who wrote a bestseller about that raid called No Easy Day. Interestingly, the book, though, does not identify the person who actually shot bin Laden. Staying with the United States, a secret letter written by US President Barack Obama to Iran's supreme leader has now triggered a huge controversy back in the States. The Wall Street Journal reported that Obama had sought Ayatollah Ali Khamenei's help, in fact, in fighting the Islamic State, while reminding him of the shared interest by both countries in defeating the extremist group. The Republicans, now that they have control of both chambers of the US Congress, they're calling this letter a sellout of America's interests.
In the fight against the Islamic State, the US is desperately scouting for more allies. And President Obama feels even Iran isn't out of bounds. Although the White House isn't confirming if Obama wrote to Iran's Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei last month to seek his help in the war.
But since we know that there has been communication between the U.S. and Iran on this matter, why can't you say if that communication happened at the level of the president and the Supreme Leader?
Just because I'm not in a position to talk about private correspondence that may
that there was a letter sent?
I'm not going to be in a position to talk about private correspondence between the president and another world leader.
The Republicans are calling Obama's step outrageous. Senators John McCain and Lindsey Graham released a joint statement reminding the administration that this Iranian regime cares more about trying to weaken America and push us out of the Middle East than cooperating with us. But the White House clarified that U.S. policy towards Iran hasn't changed.
I can tell you that the policy that the president and his administration have articulated about Iran remains unchanged. The United States is engaged in conversations with Iran in the context of the P5+1 talks to resolve the international community's concerns about Iran's nuclear program.
Obama reportedly also told Khamenei that cooperation on the war with the IS will be contingent on Iran reaching an agreement by 24th November. Khamenei, however, ruled out helping the US, going to even accusing Washington of creating the jihadist group in the first place as a tool against Iran. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
More international news coming up in Global Buzz. The two-day Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Ministerial Meet started in Beijing today. Secretary of State John Kerry is representing the United States. He will be discussing the global economic recovery. The 21 APEC countries account for 40% of the world's population, more than 50% of its economic output, and again, more than 40% of global trade. Also there in Beijing is Pakistan's Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif. He's on a two-day visit to China. Besides attending the APEC informal leaders meeting in Beijing, he's also expected to sign projects worth anywhere between $35 and $40 billion. He'll also meet with Chinese President Xi Jinping as well as other senior officials. Amid protests, authorities in Japan have approved the restart of the Sendai nuclear plant. This belongs to the Kyushu Electric Power Company. The decision is seen as a precursor to the revival of this stalled industry. This is, of course, on the back of the Fukushima nuclear disaster that happened more than 3.5 years ago. The two-reactor Sendai plant is located in Kagoshima Prefecture. It won an important endorsement recently to restart. This endorsement was won from the local township last month. French President François Hollande has promised not to run for re-election in 2017 if he fails to bring down unemployment in a significant way. In a live TV question-answer session, the socialist president said he had misread the dire state of the economy by assuming that unemployment will start to fall by the end of 2013. He also announced no new taxes will be imposed in 2015. Another break here on the news tonight. When we come back, all the sports stories, including Vishwanathan Anand begins his World Championship campaign against the Norwegian prodigy, Magnus Carlsen. That happens later tonight. The News Tonight is back right after this. Welcome back to the News Tonight. All the sports stories coming up in Sports Beat. Vishwanathan Anand will take on the defending champion Magnus Carlsen in the 2014 World Chess Championship in Sochi, Russia. The Norwegian chess prodigy directly qualified for the World Chess Championship, while Vishwanathan Anand secured his position after winning the Candidates Tournament. Anand had lost to Carlsen last year after the Norwegian won by the end of round 10 of the 12 scheduled games. That happened in Chennai. After defeating Australia 2-1 in the second match of the Hockey Test Series, the Indian men's hockey team is looking to take the lead in the third match at the Perth Hockey Stadium. India bounced back strongly after losing the opening encounter against the world champions. The series is seen as India's preparation for the upcoming Champions Trophy. The Sports Authority of India has denied reports claiming that minor boxers were subject to pregnancy tests. SAI claimed that the Indian squad does not have a single boxer who's under 18 in its ranks. The authority also said that the minimum age for participation in the World Championship is 19 years. The controversy began with reports claiming that all boxers, including minors, were forced to undergo pregnancy tests to qualify for the competition. And that's a wrap of the news tonight, this Friday edition. Thank you very much for your time. From me, Zaka Jacob, and the rest of the team, good night. Enjoy your weekend.